All right, so playground safety, the NSC, National Safety Council. Um, there are a whole bunch of different uh, like precedents you can look at. There's definitely a design feel to them. Um, the way they look, the way they're structured, they're all kind of variations on a theme. And this is good and it's not great in other ways. There's probably some middle grounds that we can do to make sure playgrounds are safe, but also open enough. Um, so when you're designing your spaces, you can by all means, if you want, sit and design something along these lines where it's this big contraption, it's all interconnected, and that stuff can be really, really fun, right? Um, my recommendation for this would be to read some of the stuff about the research that goes into this. A lot of it is from the other research I gave you, the readings and stuff. A lot of it is liability. Like they have people that go to these playgrounds that have they have implements that are the average size of whatever age child the age whatever the average size of the head it would be for a child who's age appropriate for that playground. Okay. And then they take that implement, it's like a ball. They take that ball and they try to stick it into things to see if they can get it through or not get it through. And if it gets through, does it get stuck? Because that's one of their big concerns. And if it does, then they have to, they have to either find the people that own the playground and get them to change it, etc. So, there's a whole kind of world of insurance and making sure that the people that maintain the playgrounds, like cities and state governments and stuff like that, local governments, cannot be sued if someone gets hurt. There's a lot of research. I mean, I guess I definitely have an opinion about it. An opinion fed by my own research and the fact that I have kids and I observe them and how they play in different spaces. Um, that opinion is probably pretty obvious in the readings I've given you and the discussions we've had. But I also want you to feel like you can draw your own conclusions from that. So if you have a positive association with these kinds of playgrounds, look into it. Find out why. If it's purely experience based, it's experiential for you. Break down what you enjoyed about it. Like what spaces were important to you as children. Where did you like to go and what did you like to play? Grace, did you go to what kind of playgrounds did you like?
Ones that have multiple friends.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I like the river.
The ones that move and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are always fun. My toddler likes the ones that kind of sway back and forth. He sticks his arms up and does that little toddler walk thing across him. What do you like about it?
I don't know. There's the obvious part. You can go on top of it, and then it has a big sound. It's also just you can either climb on the handlebar,
Mm-hmm.
and then my sister and I would go under it.
Yeah. Nice. So one of the things you can do. I've had this approach. This approach has been done before in my classes, where take a couple, make a list of the things that you enjoyed about certain playgrounds, right? And then pick two of those things, or even one of those things, and amplify it by 100. Just make a playground that is nothing but different slides, and how those slides are connected to each other, right? When I was a kid, there used to be a playground near the house I lived in when I was a teenager. My little brother liked to go to this playground, and it was this giant metal rocket ship looking thing that had different tiers, actual levels. This thing was huge. It had a big interior that was probably the circumference of these inner tables, right? And it was probably 2 or 3 stories tall. It had 2 or 3, I think it had 3 levels, a big awning. But then it had all these different slides, long tube slides, not open slides, but tube slides that came off of it. And it was great. It was awesome. Like it was, but then teenagers would take it over and like smoke on the inside. Nobody smelled like pee, um, stuff like that, right? Of course, but it was a lot of fun as a kid because it was unlike any playground equipment that had been around at the time. And then, granted, this is the 80s and 90s, and so everything was metal and wood back then, and very little plastic. Plastic didn't come about until late 90s, early 2000s. But that is like that's an example of like taking one idea, like a tower with just crazy, crazy amounts of slides, and just going with it. Like exaggerate a characteristic that you really enjoy, and then design it and see where that leads you. You I've had people do dog parks, different dog parks before, so I guess you don't have to do it for a person, right? But think about you can do it for adults, you can do it for kids, you can do a dog park. What else? I had someone do like I think I had someone do a cat park once, which I thought was really interesting. Lots of places to lay down. Um, yeah, just every animal plays to some degree. So you could probably make an argument for designing for any animal, I imagine. A sloth. What does a sloth playground look like? But just find a question and ask yourself, or find a characteristic or a couple of characteristics. Really, just like you got to think about what you enjoy about certain types of playgrounds or certain play spaces. Like I've had people say, give me a plan that was essentially just a forest. Like, here's my playground. It's a forest. It's like, okay, that's maybe a little too minimal, right? Like, should be something added to it, to encourage. Maybe it's just a dump of raw materials, like, deadfall that gets collected and put in a place so that you can do things with it. Maybe there's a tool shed, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, that's viable, Yeah. I mean, and you can make the argument like that theme parks are also playgrounds in a way. So you could talk a little bit about maybe you have certain rides that are in your playground. I mean, how cool would a playground be if it had like a human-powered roller coaster or something? Like, what does that look like? Right? Or like, what are those? I took my kids to a pumpkin patch, and they had a little train for a bunch of kids, and it was a tractor pulling a bunch of like water barrels that had holes cut in the side of them, and then tubing, put around it as openings, that kind of thing. You um, I've seen human power. Now that I think about it, I've seen like roller coasters where you pedal and that takes the whole train. Like if you get enough people into it, you can get going pretty fast. But everybody, it's like the paddle boats. You get in the water and you just paddle, right? But you have to have again, like all of our other projects, I don't care too much about the whether or not the engineering is super feasible. Those constraints do kind of help drive design in a lot of ways, which is fun. Um, but thinking about it in terms of like, yeah, like something that isn't powered, that doesn't need like an attendant, like a static. Why does it have to be that way? Because if you think about it, like amusement parks aren't that way, right? They are very directed. They have attendants, they have staff, whereas like your average municipal playground doesn't. Um, there's lots of directions you can go. Mm. So what, 5 ideas? Is that what I said? Oops. I was just noticing that out of the 8 people that are supposed to be here, there's only 3, which seems to be par. 3 seems to be the average for the people that show up in class. Did I say 5 ideas to begin with? Yep, 5 ideas. All right, so 5 ideas. Yeah, I think one of the best ways to start is just break down the spaces you enjoyed as a kid, into certain characteristics. What were some of the things? Did you only ever go to safe playgrounds? Did you get to run around in the woods? Did you have to play in the street? Like, what did you like about those things? Um, yeah. I would count it as a component of a playground. Splash pads would be playgrounds. Like, what way or what do you think? Because like just a pool, just a big open thing of water.
Yeah. So I work at the gde300. They
Mm-hmm.
have a new like leisure pool is what they call it.
Yeah.
They have open areas where it's like deeper water. But there's like this area where it's just like there's like a bunch of fountains, like a slide.
Oh, I guess if it has stuff in it, yeah, like that. Yeah, that would count. So you like think about something like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like Oceans of Fun down in Kansas City. Yeah. Right, right. Nice. Emily, what are you thinking of?
Um, really sure. I haven't had experiences with children's growing up with people.
Yeah.
But also this summer I went to like love playground to like seeing what he like really doing. I'm not I didn't think about it then.
Mm-hmm.
Um and it seems like a lot of like the equipment, like the very structured, like bright colored equipment. He like didn't even explain. So I don't know. I like you were talking about how like the 90s materials were metal. I think I'll probably do something like that. I think like not the big flashy colors
Right.
type of thing. Um, I also liked there's like you were talking about the student that like so it's just like words. I don't think I would do that exactly, but I think it was the Cumberland Bay playground.
What is it called?
It's called Cumberland Bay.
Blue Bay. What is this?
In one of in the
Oh, interesting.
yeah, it's like it's not a forest, but it's like designed how it's very common.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like designed based on like patterns found in the leaf.
Oh,
Really cool.
fascinating.
So I think I was gonna use that as like sort of
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, this is good. That's great. Huh, is that a Richard Serra piece, I wonder? Sweet.
it was part of the regeneration of the
Uh, that area. That's so funny. Huh, that's really cool. Nice. Yeah, the zoo has a couple of things kind of like this in their sort of adventure park. But that bringing back slightly more natural materials and not relying heavily on plastic, I think is also kind of important. Not just from an aesthetic standpoint, but um, from like a residual absorption kind of standpoint, but passive. I've always thought this kind of stuff was really interesting. The just having mounds, like uneven surfaces, um, creates this potential to, or creates all these opportunities for kids, their bodies to learn how to move across uneven terrain, which helps with athleticism and then coordination and all that stuff. And you get it. That's what like those rope bridges do. You get it that way too. I can't remember if this was one of the articles. Maybe. Uh-oh, page not found. Page not found. Hmm. Can you search? I don't see a search feature. Well, whatever. Yeah, these ones about these are parks, not playgrounds, but this article, PBS did a series about place or parks that is really really nice. It's loosely related to playgrounds because playgrounds and parks don't necessarily go hand in hand, but just creating these different spaces to be able to move around in that are green spaces in an urban environment. The High Line, well, that's Gasworks. Or no, that's the High Line. Has anyone been to New York and done the High Line? No? It's great. It used to be a railway on the west side. And then they converted it over to a pedestrian walkway with green space. I forget when they do it. I don't remember. But every time I go to New York, I make sure to walk the High Line for a little while. That's just pleasant. Is it 2011? 2009. Yeah. So it's fun. It's really, really fun. Promenade Plantee. Yeah. Again, not a play space, but a nice park. So yeah, there's lots of. I think those are great ideas, Emily. Like, especially the natural materials. And you have 5, right? Like a minimum of 5. If you want, you can do more. Maybe cap yourself at 10. Don't get too crazy. What do you feel like? Do you have any ideas for yours?
I was thinking, or like we have so many ideas that we come up with.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking for like one of them, maybe like some sort of virtual playground.
Yeah, interesting.
That might use like VR.
Huh.
Sort of like creating like a space. But like the problem with VR is the space you have. So like if I create a space, sort of like an office space, but like somewhere that's like open. But at the same time, you can create like pieces to it that like actual physical objects in the room
Right.
that would be incorporated into the
Correlate a little bit to it. Yeah. That's cool. Did anybody watch Star Trek? A little bit, you know about the holodeck? Yeah. So, Star Trek, the Next Generation has this idea of a holodeck, which is this infinitely configurable virtual space, right? It's this big open space. It uses light emitters and uses focused gravity to create the feeling of things and the illusion of things. And it's a storytelling crutch because they can then create any kind of space they want to or need to for whatever sort of stories they want to make. But it's also envisioned as kind of a recreational space on a starship for people. So it's finite, but you can move around. It can create these sort of infinite spaces because when you're in it, it will shift the environment around you as you're walking. So you're pretty much you never run into the walls. You're always in the middle of the space because it's like it pushes you up with gravity. So I'm a huge Star Trek nerd, and I have the technical manuals where they write up all the bullshit. They're like, this is how it would actually work. It's fun. we call that apologetics in interaction design. Like it's like you see something that you're like, this shouldn't work or this can't work. You see it in speculative fiction, um, and then you try to like apologize for it and say, well, no, but actually it could work if this and this and this. This is the seed of being on Reddit, essentially, right? Like you're the people that want to apologize for shit, they go to Reddit to apologize for shit. But anyway, it has an actual term in interaction design, so apologetics. If you take my class, you'll learn all about it. I love it. But essentially, like what it does is it uses gravity focused in, because they have artificial gravity in Star Trek, of course. But it uses focused gravity, it pushes you up, so you're almost like on a treadmill. So you're not actually walking across the floor. You're just walking across a surface that it is just gravity waves, and then they use like light emitters, to make that area look a certain way to you from a certain perspective. Super complicated, but the core idea sort of fits or seems plausible if you make assumptions about certain kinds of technology you have. But a holodeck is like this, and a holodeck is essentially like what you're talking about. It's a virtual reality playground that can adjust itself physically, so that you can actually touch stuff and feel stuff. You just don't need the headset and maybe some reconfigurable objects. But that's really interesting because you could think about like, if you think about like gymnastics spaces, gymnastics gyms. Actually, let's go gymnastics. They have these big, sort of, not necessarily this stuff, but I'm thinking like along the lines of like these padded foam wedges and stuff like that, right? And then, did you guys ever watch like, have you ever heard of American Gladiators, the TV show? Yeah, no. Guys, TV in the 90s was awesome. So American Gladiators is this show from the 90s. I think it might still be around. No. And they used to do these obstacle courses. Let's find images. There we go. That looked like this. Oh God, I forgot all about this. But then these big sort of like gridded, padded areas and whatever. But you could have like implements like this that people could like move around before it gets set, and then maybe there's cameras or something in space, and the software can configure itself to match that. To match the virtual environment to however you've laid out your physical environment, etc. That sort of thing. So think along those lines, right? Because you'd want to illustrate this, like in your designs, in your diagrams. Man, I wonder if there's like a good YouTube video essay about the holodeck. That would be a fun thing to watch. How YouTube changed the essay. Nope. How to make a video essay. That's not what I want. YouTube holodeck essay. That's 42 seconds. Yeah, this is okay. So this is, gosh, this is terrible. I wonder if we can find a higher quality. Yeah, 480p. We are going to watch part of an episode of Star Trek, so thank you for that. I'm going to have to stop recording because of licensing things.